And I'm saying this because they turned Michael Sterling into a girl. But this one was completely off the rails. If you're wondering where I'm going, I'm literally going nowhere. I just wanted to do my makeup while I did this. Don't trust people on the internet. This book was actually really disgusting. Hello, and welcome back. I'm assuming you guys can hear me perfectly well. So, today, we're going to do a little get ready with me while I tell you about all the books I read. Let me just pull up my list. I know how unprofessional I can be sometimes, but I swear I'll try to be a little bit more professional when I do this. But we're starting off with May. I hope my voice is clear enough. I'd be so sad if it wasn't. I took a picture on my tablet so I can see things better. The first book I finished in May was Holly by Stephen King. I went back and forth from listening to it on audiobook and then reading the physical book because I got it from the library. I ended up finishing the book and I actually really liked it. It's about the main character, I'd say, is Bonnie, and her mother goes and reaches out for Holly's help because she wants to find her daughter. And I think it's Bonnie. I don't really remember. But Holly discovers that the multiple missing cases that have happened recently and from like 20 or 30 years ago, I think, all happened because of the same people. And she finds out, she becomes one of the victims, actually, of these offenders. And I don't want to, for once in my life, I don't want to spoil anything. So I'd highly recommend to read it. I know it's part of a series, but I just read it because it won a Goodreads Choice Awards. So that's my reason for reading that book. I used so much primer, I don't know. But anyway, I gave it it's one of my favorite. Actually, I think this is one of the only Stephen King books that I've actually genuinely liked. Because I read Mr. Mercedes and Finders Keepers, but I actually genuinely liked this book. I always thought Stephen King was really hard to read because he's like an adult author, but it was surprisingly easy to read Holly. And then I decided to go back into my childhood, and I read The Witches by Roald Dahl. Now, I read this book in the 4th grade, and the thing is that I was listening to the audiobook while I had my copy of The Witches. There's different versions of the book, so obviously some parts of my physical book were skipped over because of the audiobook, so I just ended up finishing it on audiobook. I don't know why, because I had my own copy, but that's just what I decided to do. Okay, moving on to concealer. The 3rd book I read in May was Chicken Noodle Soup for the Teenage Soul. Now, this is a collection of essays written for teenagers to read. It talks about love, relationship, family, all that fun stuff. I started reading it before I went on vacation, and I actually really enjoyed it beforehand, and then when I got back, I was like, how did I ever actually like this book? So then I tried to finish it as soon as possible. It's a very interesting book. Obviously, I read any genre of books. I don't just stick to like romance or just fantasy or just contemporary. I like to go around because you'll learn a lot if you just read into different genres, I also feel like it's a way that you can explore different views and perspectives. And, well, I definitely won't read another Chicken Noodle Soup for the Soul book, except I have another one. I don't know which one it is, but it's one of the fatter ones. And I will finish it because it's in my library and I won't, not read it. So, sorry, I always have to check if it's not an echoing. The next book was Shanghai Girls, and this is one of the books that was part of my physical current reads for a very long time because I thought I wasn't going to like that book because of how descriptive it was of what was going on. And if you read the book, when the main character is in her home country, her home country's at war. So I thought I wasn't going to really like it, but then I gave it another chance and I read it in like a week. I cried reading the book. I thought it was very interesting, and that made me get another Lisa C. book. And I think I'll show a picture of it. It was one of her other bestsellers, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I think I've blended in my concealer enough. The 5th book was Pretty Girls by, I'm pretty sure, Karen Slaughter. I was going to make a book about how I read 5 thriller books about girls. I had 5 books, and the title had girls in it. This book was actually really disgusting. The things that I found out, like, okay, from a female standpoint, I'd say, or from a girl's standpoint or a woman's standpoint, there's a lot of disgusting things that people enjoy, but yes, but when it comes to men and finding out that they are not only disgusting creatures, but also enjoy or are amused by disgusting topics, it really makes me feel even more unsafe, you know what I mean, in the world. And I just want to just stay in my little room. And reading this audiobook, I really didn't want to finish it, but I was like, how is this going to end? How's this truly going to end? And then I finished it, and I will read another Karen Slaughter book, but I hopefully it doesn't have such weird characters. I know it's essential for thriller books to have sick and twisted characters, but it made me uncomfortable, is what I'm gonna say. And then my last book of May is Icebreaker, and it honestly just made me want to get a hockey boyfriend. Now, okay, Icebreaker. I want to still talk about this. A lot of people don't like it, and they say it's like unrealistic, but if you want it to be realistic, why don't you put yourself out there and go find yourself an ice skater or go find yourself a hockey player? You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand why people are like, this is so unrealistic. It's a fiction book. How realistic do you want it to be? Anyway, my friend and I, actually no, a lot of people have said they actually enjoyed Icebreaker. The only people who were like, oh, I didn't like that book, were like literally people on the internet. Don't trust people on the internet is my advice for that book. I mean, people might be like, oh, there was no story, no plot. Okay, well then go read another book. Next, in June, I finished Diary of a Madman and Other Stories. Genuinely the most funniest book I've read this year. I didn't know how funny it would be to read Russian literature like that. It made me actually appreciate the translators for translating it, because it's probably funnier in Russian. You guys are probably like, why are you laughing at the book when it's literally about a madman and such different things? Well, guys, I can laugh at whatever I want, and I chose to laugh at this, so that's what I'm laughing at. The eyeshadow is eyeshadowing, don't you think? I haven't worn eyeshadow in such a long time, actually. Alright, I'm gonna use my cheap eyeliner today because I don't want to use my Fenty one. Next book, The Breadwinner, the first book. I read this book in, I think, the 4th or 5th grade. I think my sister had to read it for a novel study in the 6th grade, and I was always the bookworm, so I needed to read that book. And I actually just read the graphic novel, I think. I don't remember if I actually read the novel, but I read the novel now, so there's that. And I feel like she inspired me to maybe like make myself uncomfortable or become a version of me that I'm not comfortable with, just in order for like my family to have like the means to survive. And it's like not to compare myself to the main character, but the only reason I know what a breadwinner is because of her. And if it wasn't my life's, and if I hadn't made it my life's goal to become my family's breadwinner, what would I do? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I know I preach about, well, my close friends probably know that I preach about how women aren't the providers, women are on the receiving end of a relationship, and how men are supposed to be providing because if they're in their masculine energy, they're supposed to be providing. But as a young girl who doesn't want to get married or doesn't want to really talk to guys, you just have to step into your masculine energy. I hope I'm focused, because like I put it on cinematic mode and it actually makes me so angry if my face isn't on focus, because I can see that the background is blurry, but if my face is also blurry, refund my iPhone 15 Plus in pink. The next book was The Golden Tower. I finished the Magisterium series by Holly Black and I think Cassandra Clare. I genuinely said at the very start that every fantasy book with magic and wizards or whatever are the same, because you have like the main character has a guy best friend and a girl best friend, and either the main character falls in love with the girl or the other friend falls in love with the girl. But this one was completely off the rails. The kids in this book were unhinged. It Interesting, I'd say, but I wouldn't really recommend it to anyone, especially if the person I was recommending it to were big fantasy or magic people. Like, this is good for someone who normally just reads contemporary books, I'd say. I'm kind of messing up my eyeliner, but I always mess up my eyeliner. I haven't quite gotten a hang of it yet, even though I've been wearing makeup for like a whole year. I mean, like, since forever. If you're wondering where I'm going, I'm literally going nowhere. I just wanted to do my makeup while I did this. And then I read The Final Offer, the last book in the Dreamland Billionaire series, and I can gladly tell you that nothing will ever beat the first book. Not even the second book. It's not like the Twisted series, where my favorite book is the last book, Twisted Lies, but nothing really beats the fine print. I didn't really like terms and conditions that much, but The Final Offer was just not it. It really wasn't. I don't know what Lauren Asher didn't do in the last 2 books that she did in the first book, but there was definitely something missing in that book. So it wasn't a 5 stars. I think I gave it a 3 or 4 star rating. It was a good romance book, but it wasn't the best. You know what I mean? When you read something and you were just like, oh yeah, that's nice. I would never read it again. It wasn't like life-changing. It didn't like hire my standards. Well, if you read the Dreamlands Billionaire series, you're probably going to end up trying to look for a billionaire. And then I finished Because of Miss Bridgerton. I talked about it, and I actually filmed like 5 minutes worth of footage for my reading vlog about Because of Miss Bridgerton, but I thought it was part of my main vlog, so I didn't include it, and I deleted all of that footage because I was like, I'm not going to include it in my next reading vlog, because what's the point? I finished Because of Miss Bridgerton. I'm actually in love with the Bridgerton series. I'm on episode 8 of season 3 of Bridgerton right now, and I hate how much they changed the actual stories of the Bridgertons. Like, they kept Daphne's pretty well, but then from season 2, no hate to the actors, because in the books Kate and Edwina were supposed to be blonde with blue eyes, I'm pretty sure, because it's like becoming more modernized, that they're being more inclusive. But I feel like changing a lot of things might just make it not be the Bridgerton stories anymore, you know what I mean? And I'm saying this because they turned Michael Sterling into a girl. Why? Just why? Anyway, that's my little thing. I will still watch the next Bridgerton series. I'm pretty sure there's going to be 8 of them. Hopefully they do like adaptations of the prequels, because I would love to watch those too. I'll eat it up every time. Powder time. And then the last book I finished was If He Had Been With Me. I actually finished this on July 1st, but that's basically June. So, there. It's about this story between 2 childhood friends who drift apart when they get into high school, because the girl found new friends. She didn't want to be part of the same crowd as her guy best friend, and we find out that he's loved her this entire time. And well, the spoiler, there's like a spoiler in the very first, in like the beginning of the book, so it doesn't really matter what I say, because he ends up dying. He ends up in a car crash, and the second book, I'm pretty sure, is about their baby that they have together, because they did it before he died, and that's just so sad. I don't know if I'm going to read that book this summer, but I'll definitely read it soon, is what I can tell you. This is the final look, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I will have another reading vlog up before next week, and thank you for watching. See you guys next time.